he and I started talking online through social media. And then we started talking on the phone, and
Amidst all this emotional turmoil brewing beneath the surface of the Brown family, there existed a different kind of neglect, quietly bubbling just beneath the surface. A far less discussed but profoundly impactful one. This neglected aspect had nothing to do with broken hearts or relationship fractures. It had everything to do with how the family managed two of the most important lifelines: finances and healthcare. And nothing portrayed this failure more than the excruciating ordeal of Isabel Brown's scoliosis surgery. Hi, I'm Anya, and welcome back to Sister Wives Files. Today, we're diving into a moment that exposed more than just a health crisis. It laid bare the emotional and parental shortcomings that have long haunted the Brown household. Scoliosis, a once debilitating and progressive condition, had already devastated Isabel's daily life. She suffered with prolonged pain for months at a time, her situation worsening as time passed. But rather than receiving the immediate treatment she so obviously required, Isabel waited almost in vain, suffering through 9 excruciating months before her mother Christine was finally able to arrange the necessary insurance to move forward with surgery. 9 months for a teenager, in pain, waiting. So why did this indefensible delay happen? The explanation points directly to Cody Brown and his inexplicable inaction. Instead of stepping up as a dad and moving quickly, decisively to get his daughter the help she needed, Cody procrastinated. He dawdled. He shifted the entire responsibility to Christine, even though the family was well off. This wasn't a question of money. The Browns were doing okay. Big houses, 2 cars, vacationing as a family. The money was available, but Cody decided not to spend it. Now here's the hook. Why would a father deliberately hold back resources when his daughter was struggling? Rather, instead of spending money on his daughter's immediate needs, Cody chose to wait until Isabel turned 18 and could purchase insurance independently. It was not only bad ethics, it was a shining display of emotional neglect and detachment. The system might have been operable from the outside, as far as the Brown family's finances were concerned, but when it came to giving their children's health the priority attention it needed, the system broke down. This wasn't simply about dollars and cents. It revealed a disturbing trend, one in which Cody sidestepped responsibility time and time again, leaving Christine to bear the emotional and logistical burden alone. Again and again, the same pattern played out. Cody would retreat at the critical moment, and someone else, most often Christine, had to pick up the pieces. Despite all the trappings of a successful life, the family couldn't even keep the fundamentals covered, such as giving their children proper health care. This paradox, living well but letting their kids down, speaks to something much deeper: emotional hypocrisy. And Cody's parenting style made that contradiction only more agonizing. While insisting on absolute loyalty, emotional obedience, and authority in family decisions, when actual needs arose, such as his children's physical and emotional health, he backed away. The paradox was overwhelming. The price? Even higher. The emotional consequences weren't just individual, but intergenerational. As the years went by, the psychological wounds only grew more severe. Cody's refusal or inability to be a compassionate decision-maker left some of his children isolated and betrayed. For the Browns, the pandemic was more than an open health emergency. It was a reckoning. It compelled the family to face the emotional fissures that had been overlooked for so long, and the harm became irreversible. Cody's increased emotional distance didn't only shatter his marriages, it ruined his relationship with his children. One of the saddest examples, his response to Garrison's mental health issues at the pandemic's peak. Garrison, visibly in emotional crisis, was alone, without the stability or guidance of the one person who ought to have been his stabilizing force. Let that settle. This wasn't a single mistake, It was a pattern, a dangerous one that exposed the difference between claiming to be a provider and actually showing up when it matters most. The cycle of pain didn't end with Garrison. She repeated it with Isabel. Weeks went by in bitter silence before she was finally given the medical care that was her due. And as Cody emotionally distanced himself, it was Christine, Janelle and Meri who picked up the emotional slack he left behind. These women became the anchors of the family, offering comfort to their children, creating stability where none existed, and providing the kind of emotional nourishment that should have come from both parents. But this role came at a cost. The constant pressure of filling in the emotional gaps Cody left behind began to erode their own mental well-being. And then the tragedy. Think about how things might have turned out if Cody had just decided to be there, not only in body, but with heart awake. What if he had been actually present, feeling for his children's suffering, and empathetic to the emotional needs of the women who supported him all those years? There, for all the world to see, Cody's emotional infidelity with Robin was no longer an ugly rumor. It was a palpable reality. The wives, tired at last of silence and lies, demanded voice. Years of pent-up pain, betrayal, and rage rushed forward. It wasn't a family fight, it was the imploding of a legacy. Cody attempted, once more, to take charge, to grease the wheels, to return the narrative, but now it was too late. The result of his decades of favoritism, emotional disregard and sidestepping had become permanent, and the women, having finally been empowered with a voice, would no longer be silenced. It was the first wife who at last broke her silence. Her voice, raw and thick with years of pent-up emotion, shook as she accosted Cody. She charged him, simply and compellingly, of emotionally manipulating her, of pressuring her to pretend it was okay for him to gradually move toward Robin, while she, Meri, smiled and remained silent. The pain she had borne was no longer concealed. Cody's favoritism of Robin wasn't just awkward, it was humiliating. And now it was public. That long, secret relationship, so sometimes guarded by half-truths and fuzzy boundaries, had come at the cost of Meri. She hadn't simply been left behind, she had been sacrificed. And then Janelle spoke. Her words didn't tremble, they seared. Years of effort to be the quiet, reliable one were finished. She finally acknowledged what she had long suppressed, how hungry she'd been for emotional attachment, how forgotten she'd felt. Robin's preferred position hadn't altered the balance. It had broken Janelle's place in the family. She had been marginalized, gradually and quietly, and then Christine, half out the door emotionally, also corroborated everyone's suspicion. She was done. No pretending, no trying. She'd already moved on. The betrayal was no longer private. Now it was a public disintegration. She no longer cared to struggle for a relationship that had long lost its reality. But the heartbreak didn't stop with the wives. Their kids, once optimistic, once believers in the promise of a robust, cohesive family, had truths of their own to tell. They too had known the pain of emotional abandonment. They too had been pushed to the side. The father they had once worshipped had become remote, unreachable. Their voices broke with sorrow as they spoke not only in words, but in tears, of being ignored, dismissed, and emotionally abandoned. And then came the tipping point. The illusion of a healthy plural family, already teetering on life support, at last completely collapsed. What had previously been touted as a special, loving home was now clearly exposed as a dysfunctional system based on favoritism and emotional imbalance. To audiences, it was the last straw. The well-honed image of Cody as a steadfast, able patriarch collapsed before their very eyes. Those who had previously come to his defense were now left speechless or vocally turned against him. His attempt to spin the tale, to lay blame at miscommunication, or present it as misplaced loyalty was useless. He wasn't misinterpreted, he was emotionally unavailable, self-interested, and oblivious to the harm he inflicted. Public opinion shifted bitterly. Cody, who had been the focus of this experiment in polygamy, was now regarded as cold-hearted, unable to be held accountable, and growing ever more distant, even within his own household. And when you stand back and consider it all, the complete cycle, the whole agonizing saga, one fact becomes unavoidable. The price was staggering. The emotional damage left in its wake is staggering. Meri, his original love, was relegated to a cameo role in her own wedding, pressured to open her arms to the same relationship that killed her own, left with nothing but silence and loneliness. Christine, once the most positive and caring, had to find the strength to break free from a man who no longer noticed her. The love had disappeared, the partnership dead for a long time, and Janelle, quiet, level-headed Janelle, was discarded without explanation after sacrificing all to keep the family on its feet. These women weren't abandoned, they were erased. And the children? They saw it all, they lived it. Their understanding of love, of family, of what a father is supposed to do, was shattered. Not through accident, but through years of emotional deprivation, masquerading as honesty and favoritism as truth. For years, the kids had assumed their household was supposed to be a refuge, a place of protection, love, and belonging. What they got instead was stuck watching as it gradually unraveled before them. They didn't merely witness the aftermath, courage does that, they lived it. Helpless, they watched on the sidelines as their father, bit by bit, emotionally abandoned them to forge a new life around someone else. They heard the arguments, they picked up on the tension, they suffered through the silence, and that is a tragedy no child should ever be forced to endure. The harm inflicted on these children, the emotional damage of being excluded, overlooked, and rendered invisible in their own home, cannot be adequately described. All they sought was love and recognition from their father. What they got was distance, detachment, and the deafening silence of unlove. And here's the sad reality. The actual betrayal wasn't merely Cody's emotional infidelity. It was his total inability to be present for the people who cared for him most. His refusal to be truthful, his failure to give respect, his emotional unavailability, all of these nibbled away at the tenuous trust that once bound the Brown family together. In the end, Cody didn't just fail as a husband, he failed as a father. As the supposed patriarch of the family, his collapse left permanent cracks, scars that won't easily heal. When he stopped showing up with presence, with truth, with consistency, everything else began to unravel. So now we're left with a few tough questions. Did Cody ever really understand the gravity of what he did? Was it always a matter of control? Was it merely a story he attempted to steer until it ultimately got away from him? Can trust ever be regained after a betrayal so profound? I'd love to get your opinions. Let me know in the comments below. Do you believe Cody's behavior was selfish or merely blind? And if you're invested in the true life tale of sister wives, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive here on Sister Wives Files Live.